welcome all our eminent guests. And especially, first of all, I would like to invite our program coordinator, Deepa Chaudhary, ma'am. Please, over
Thank
to
you
you,
so
ma'am.
much. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to our today's session for this evening, which is India's war against COVID-19, and our theme today is importance of the public health infrastructure. We have our four speakers. We have Professor Dr. Rajkumar Singh, Ms. Alka Kapoor, Brigadier Sushil Bhasin, Dr. G.C. Kavita. I welcome all our eminent speakers and all our attendees to this warm session today, the importance of the public health infrastructure. I am Deepa Chaudhary, your host for this evening, and let's all look forward to a healthy, fruitful discussion. May I now invite our first speaker, Professor Dr. Rajkumar Singh. He is the Dean, R&D and HOD, Department of Commerce, School of Management Sciences from Varanasi. Dr. Rajkumar, you're welcome on our session today, and we look forward to have your insights on our today's evening session, importance of the public health infrastructure. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And first, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Raja Rao, sir, for inviting me in this panel discussion on the importance of the public health infrastructure. And you have chosen a very pertinent topic, India war against. I like this term. Actually, this is really a war, which we have never fought, which entire world has never fought. And when such kind of disaster management is required, it becomes a very challenging task for any country, any nation. See, in our ancient Ayurvedic text, Charak Samhita, there is a sloka which is called Dharmartha Kam Mokshanam Arogyam Moolam Uttamam. The meaning of this sloka is health is a very essential root cause to fulfill all our duties, that is dharma, earning money, the artha, desires, fulfillment, that is the kam, and mokshanam is the salvation. So this is the importance of health. And as we know, before COVID, India was known to be the topmost healthcare destination in the world. And the concept of the healthcare tourism were rising because we are having the efficient doctors and our cost of treatment was the least in the entire world. So people from different part of the world were coming to India. And no doubt, in this current situation, this has damaged the image. There are so many reasons. And this can happen to any country. India is a country of 135 per population, and it is not possible to give the emergency treatment facility for everyone. But anyway, we have left somewhere, and we have to see that what are the root causes. See, this is not preparation of one day. If you go through some statistics, I will share with you, India's spending on the healthcare is around just 1.5% of the GDP, which is one of the lowest spending on the health. It should be between 5 to 10% looking to the country like India. Now we are spending too much because we don't have that kind of thing. And what happens? This has invariably led to a poor public health infrastructure in the country, where the people are facing to spend more on the medical expenses. More than 80% of population of India still does not have any significant health insurance coverage. So it is just the failure of both the healthcare system as well as the healthcare management. We have seen that major issues, so many lives we have lost just because of insufficient supply of the oxygen, beds, medicines. So whatever strategy has to be drawn in present deliberations of all the panelists, this should not be just confined to this wave because scientists are expecting the other waves also. So we need to separate the COVID healthcare with the general healthcare in perspective, because human body is there and there may be so many problems. The major challenges first is that we are not having the sufficient COVID hospitals and even the COVID wards in the, but we are having the capacity. I live in Varanasi. You must have heard about the BHU. Recently, DRDO, Defense Research Development Organization, they have developed a 750 bed hospital within 2 weeks. We can do that. Only thing is the priority. Only thing is the determination. Only thing is that we should have that kind of thing. With 8.5 hospital beds per 10,000 population, this is one of the lowest situation we are having. Just 8.5 hospital beds per 10,000 population and 8 physicians per 10,000 population. So now we can understand what the situation is. And if you see the ICU beds in the government hospital, this is also very insufficient. Just 0.55 bed per 1,000 person. And this is the real problem which we are facing. And that's why if initially the things are being checked out, the home quarantine is the best solution. But that is on an initial, not at all. Because when the situation will go worse, you need the ICU. We are having the insufficient COVID specialist doctors. I would like to mention one of my personal experience. My brother-in-law and I also suffer from COVID. Here I've seen that with the allopathic medicines, the combined treatment of the Ayurvedic medicines has worked a lot. I was having the problem of the congestion later on, and there I used the Ayurvedic medicines and it has given the benefit. So we need to work on that holistic system of medicine where the allopathy and the Ayurveda, with the help of the Ayush, we can work together. Likewise, the insufficient supporting staff is there. This is again creating so many problems. We have to prepare on that. So far as the oxygen aspect is concerned, this has been one of the most challenging dimensions. Production were low, no doubt. But basic issue which I have seen is the physical distribution mismanagement. And many people have misused that and sold the oxygen on very high prices. You know this very well, 40,000, 50,000 percent. But now government has taken consideration all these things. Government is doing. Today I have read in the newspaper that now UP has doubled the capacity of 1,000 metric ton of oxygen production per day. And this is required everywhere. Likewise, the medicine is concerned. We have seen that the black marketing of the remdesivir and so many other medicine were not available in the market. Because companies are making this medicine in a general way. And for this, they need to expand their capacities. So many raw materials. This is where actually the real concern is. We have been dependent on China on so many raw materials of the medicines. And the self-reliance which has been emphasized last year, Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think first we should Atmanirbhar in this way because this is where the life is. Ventilators are insufficient. Inadequate ambulances were there. Now the ambulances fluids are increasing, but this will take time. This is not the thing which can be done within one time. Even our testing time were quite high. And unnecessary formalities in the beginning. Now the government is relaxing all these things. This time what we have seen the second phase, that the virus were not affecting first on the throat and then on the lungs. This time they were directly affecting your lungs. So even if your report is not positive, you can suffer. So we need adequate CT scan facilities where we have to avoid the contamination of. And some moral and ethical aspects. So many hospitals we have seen the complaints that they were charging very high prices. And now the government, especially I'm in UP, the chief minister has ordered them that, okay, you make the charges transparent, that how much your charges are, so that the patient can take decision, proper decision. There should be a lack of transparency in the treatment process and the cost of the medication. We have to think about that unethical medical practices. Vaccination, it's good enough, but today we are seeing we are lacking that because of lack of the raw material supplied from the America and other part of the world. And we need to, although government is working in that direction, and they have given a license to 3 4 more companies so that the this vaccine production can be increased. But this is a long time phenomenon. There is a controversy now also that some people are saying that okay, it should be openly licensed and this formulation can be given to every pharmaceutical company. But this is not possible. If this will happen in the long run, why a company will spend on the research and development? So yes, with their patent and with their copyrights and with their protection of IPR and giving a price out of that, this should be diversified, and now it is being diversified to other pharmaceutical units also. And we need to work on that. There's a lack of cleanliness in the hospitals. This is one of the issues creating more and more infections. And we are seeing that there is improper disposal system of the PPE kits and other things, which is creating infection. And there's no proper fooding facility. People are afraid of going to the hospitals that they will die. Automatically, they will die because of other reasons, not just because of COVID, because of other reasons. So there are proper collaboration with the NGO must be there, who are supplying the foods to different hospitals, the COVID hospitals. And what in this phase we have observed that the COVID has spread in the rural areas. Normally, the COVID infections were not in the rural area in the last time. But what happened, especially in the UP, Bihar, and Jharkhand, what my observation is, majority of people, as we all know, they live in the cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Gujarat, cities of Gujarat for their livelihood. So every year they come back to their villages at the time of Holi. So and all these areas were affected badly. So when they came from that places and in a state like UP, where the panchayat election was there, they stayed there for a longer period of time, and this has created the spreading of the infection in the rural areas, which is a very dangerous thing, very dangerous thing. Even in my village, I have seen so many casualties. And the rural infrastructure of the healthcare is very poor, we all know. And we need to work on that. I think every 20 kilometers, there should be a proper COVID hospitals with a proper bed. And as we all know, that primary health care centers are very important. That primary health infrastructure is very important because in the beginning of the symptom, the things are being treated properly, the things will not grow. And within 7 to 8 days of treatment, the things can be controlled. We need to think in that direction. And very, very essential is the medical waste management. That is going to be another dangerous thing for us. There is a very poor public communication on the given number of the hospitals. If you try to phone on those numbers, they are not taken. So people should be made accountable for that. Because the rumors, misinterpreted communications, the communication gap, this is creating more problem. And we are suffering less from the pandemic, more from the infodemic. Lot many informations, rumors are spreading on the WhatsApp, and through that misinformations, we are taking the wrong decision, we are spreading wrong rumors. There should be a proper facility of the telecounseling for the patients in the, especially in the remote area or the old age people who cannot come to the hospitals. And I think India is one of the emerging power in the IT sector. Why there cannot be a virtual platform on which we can track where the beds are, where the oxygens are, where the medicines are, where the vaccines are, through the apps. And this can be done, and this should be done. It may take some time, but for future, the kind of havoc and things which has been created in this phase will not emerge. We can take the help of the modern technology like robotics and drone delivery systems and all these things. So far as the communication is concerned, what I've seen, as I've told you, that infodemic is one of the major issues, and we should work on that 12C model, that communication impartiality, the content clarity, the cautiousness, the cleanliness focus, the contamination awareness, the confusion avoidance, the conflict management, confirmation of the news, the common man involvement, because without the support of the public, this cannot happen, because public support is very essential. And we have been careless. We should accept this. We have been careless, and that's why we are suffering today. Because every government, every administration is having certain limitation. We need to be careful. We should always remember one thing, that still there is no 100% solution. Only one solution is that is how we are saving ourselves through the physical distancing, through the social distancing precautions, to the mask, and by sanitizing ourselves. The coordination, the cooperation, and courtesy to the coronavirus. We need to work more on the fear management from the negative perceptions. So many negative perceptions are being generated, and here the role of the psychotherapist comes. At present, I was just reading an article that doctors and health workers are suffering from a lot of stress. We need to work on their stress management, because ultimately they are the people who are going to deliver us the healthcare service. And above all, the morality and ethical values are very important, because we have worked on healthcare infrastructure development. We will work on that, but most important is the human values development. The human has shown the most inhuman face in this time. Ruthlessly, they are looting and they are doing what not. And this is, we should be ashamed of being a human being. And we should work on that collectively, because this is not, I was just reading yesterday that in Nepal also it has been spread, even in Pakistan the case is increasing. So it is not the issue of one country, this is the issue of the entire humanity. And country like India, we have always believed in our ancient traditional system of the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means the entire world is like family. In Vedas, it has been clearly mentioned that Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kashchid Dukbhav. May all become the happy, may none fall ill, may all see the auspicious everywhere, may none everyone feel sorrow. This is what our ancient Indian philosophy is there. India is a great nation, and Indians are the most brave people. So I am of firm confidence that with our understanding of the problem and carefulness, very soon India will come out of this crisis. Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your insights. And I see we have a very serious topic today for our discussion. The seriousness I could see with the disappointing factors that has been highlighted are deficient infrastructure, manpower, unmanageable patient load, the quality of services, and high out-of-pocket expenditure. Something that I really liked about was that we are suffering less from pandemic and more from infodemic. The role that media has played and humanity has taken a backseat. I am sad to say that very well said, and we cannot shy away from this, so we cannot deny it at all. So coming to our next speaker, she is the principal of Modern Public School, Shalimar Bagh, New Delhi. May I welcome Miss Alka Kapoor to share her views, please. Ma'am Alka Kapoor, welcome to our today's session to share your views about our theme today, importance of the public health infrastructure. And I'm thrilled to see a lot of our attendees. We have total 52 attendees, and I guess there are many from a modern school, and I have students who are writing their names, Purvi Mathur, we have Arnav Gulati and Tanmay, and kids from 5th standard, 4th standard, and 6th standard, 3rd standard. Adi Jain, welcome all, welcome all. And I'm super excited to see all the kids joining us. And I'm sure their parents are listening there too. And all are waiting and excited to hear from their principal. So a big applause. I said, warm welcome to our next speaker, Ma'am Alka Kapoor. We would love to hear from you. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Deepa. Namaskar, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank Mr. Raja Rao and the World Peace Commission for reaching out to me and inviting me to be a part of this discussion on India's war against COVID-19. It's a matter of honor to share the platform with such high experience and reputed people. And before I go further, may I request everyone to please put themselves on mute, because the last participant was demonstrating a lot of patience while he was being disturbed. So I don't want that to happen to the other participants. Please, I request everyone to put yourself on mute, or the admin to put everyone on force mute, please.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You actually took what I was about to say. And
Thank you,
actually,
Deepa. Thank you. Yeah, sure. So, the topic today is extremely relevant in today's scenario, where we have realized the importance and need of a strong healthcare infrastructure now more than ever before. And I believe myself and Dr. Rajkumar Singh, we are almost on the same page. So you will be seeing some repeated emotions coming in. And in fact, I strongly believe that a strong education system and healthcare system are the backbones of any country. So, the COVID-19 outbreak has made the world realize and appreciate the importance of healthcare system, and that is why we are all here to discuss. Otherwise, the same was being done by experts and policymakers. So, as we need a robust healthcare system, one that is fully equipped and battle ready, because the disease poses a huge threat in today's increasingly interconnected and interdependent world. So let me ask a question. When was the last time we all sat down and had a conversation about how the government should focus on building the health care infrastructure, and what percent of GDP should be allocated to it? Because till now, everything seemed to be fine. And all the planning, as I said earlier, was left to the experts and the policymakers. My dear friends, my dear students, we are amidst a pandemic which has occurred after 100 years. The last pandemic was the cholera epidemic in the mid 19th century, the Spanish flu that we have discussed many times, which made people and the governments all over the world realize the importance of public health. The growing awareness that germs caused diseases, and the consequent investments in public health system involving sanitation and disease surveillance played a bigger role in improving the expectancy of life in the 20th century. Before the pandemic, there were not many complaints with the Indian healthcare system. In fact, people from all over the world traveled to India to get their treatments because they believed that India has one of the best medical facilities at affordable prices. And actually, India was catering to its 136.64 crore citizens, plus the foreign nationals before the crisis. You know, I've been visiting hospitals, and all the time I used to be swollen with pride that so many foreigners coming to India. And the answer used to be yes, the healthcare is dependable here.
Sonam Gupta.
Yeah, I request everyone to please be muted. Thank you. So, India also has one of the largest pools of healthcare professionals. It is estimated that India is the largest supplier of migrant physicians in the world. According to a study by Dr. Rita Sood of AIMS, India produces the largest number of doctors than any other country in the world. The National Medical Commission 2019, which aims to ensure the availability of adequate and high quality medical professionals, is also a step forward in this regard. Further, our robust generic pharmaceuticals account for the production of several medicines at relatively lower prices. You must have noticed whenever you tell your relatives who are living outside of India, we are coming to your country, what do you want us to get for you? And they say, please bring medicines, because medicines in our country are very, very expensive. So I'm proud that India has been able to supply medicines at a very nominal cost. Yes, the past 1 month has certainly been a very difficult one for us. We've seen shortages of beds, oxygen, ventilators for the ones who have been in need. But I request you to stop and look back and see for how long we had to face this issue. Within a month, the problem was resolved. And the number of deaths due to COVID started its downfall. Before the panel discussion started, in a very candid conversation with Brigadier Sushil, I was asking, how are things in Mumbai? And he said, yeah, they've settled. So Delhi also, we see the downfall in the graph every single day. So I think things are on the stage of settling down. Does this not say anything about the resilience of our healthcare infrastructure? See, it won't be an exaggeration to say that my country was bleeding and the health infrastructure itself was on the ventilator. But how? Now it's back on its 2 feet. Catering to the needs of its citizens, the vaccination drive has already started. I read as per the India Spend, which is the country's first data journalism initiative. On March 17, India completed 7% of its target 60 days into the vaccination drive, up to 3% exactly a month ago. The overall target is 500 million people by July 2021, which makes it 4% hike. That amounts to 20 million people. You know, apart from this, India is also exporting the vaccines to its neighborhood countries free of cost. Countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Seychelles, Afghanistan, Bangladesh will be receiving the vaccine from India. As far as the healthcare infrastructure in India is concerned, we cannot ignore the fact that the population of our country is more than the population of many countries put together. And the problem is that majority of the population here is uneducated and illiterate. It's painful that even in the 21st century, we have to educate people to maintain health and hygiene through hoardings and campaigns by spending millions of rupees, which could otherwise be utilized in uplifting the health infrastructure. And the worst is that even today they are living in denial. I say it with confidence and conviction because I have a fleet of domestic helpers in my house and none of them want to take the vaccine. These people give you all justified reasons for not wearing a mask or sanitizing their hands frequently, thus contributing to the hike in the number of cases. Having said that, it's on record that even a superpower and an educated country like the United States of America also became helpless during the pandemic. And I think the entire world swears by the health infrastructure of the United States. We all know what happened in Italy. Trust me, I was in Italy and I went through an embassy on an educational tour to sign an MOU. And over there, a colleague who was suffering from stomachache could not get treatment. And for 3 days, we were running to the hospitals in Rome. And it was very painful for me to see how people were getting the treatment there. And that is the day I resolved, come what may, I will never leave India and settle abroad, because at least in India, we have good doctors and we have medical treatment available to us even in the middle of the night. Over there, they would give tokens and the patient would have to wait for 4 to 5 days, even for getting medicine for maybe acidity. So, the infrastructure in India certainly is better than many, many countries. Uh, in Italy, in United States of America, we all saw how people were left to die on the streets. And the reason is that these are not usual times. These are times of a pandemic, times that people have not seen in the last 100 years, as I said. The second wave of COVID 19 in India is, according to me, a humanitarian crisis more than a healthcare crisis. As Dr. Rajkumar Singh rightly said, people were ruthless in demonstrating any kind of value system. People started holding and black marketing of the essentials for survival, be it oxygen or medicines. People actually played a havoc with the safety protocols. India, who's one of the leading producers of medical oxygen, has become dependent on other countries. It's a shame. And it's all because people were hoarding. People were black marketing. As on date, India's supply of medical grade liquid oxygen is higher than its demand, even then. Due to lack of cryogenic tankers, it is not reaching the patients. Isn't it a shame? People did not come forward for plasma donations to save lives. As much as I totally appreciate the fact that, according to WHO, the doctor patient ratio should be 1 is to 1,000, whereas in India, it is currently 1 is to 1,456. But I would repeat, we are a developing nation and we have come a long way, are on a road to success. So I insist that it is not a reason to feel hopeless at this particular time. You may agree with me, you may not agree with me. However, there is no limit to attaining perfection. So, what are the solutions for ensuring a better future? First and foremost, there should be no brain drain. The fact is that the best Indian minds move out of our countries and occupy prominent positions in hospitals as heads of departments, because in other countries they are paid well. Doctors should be paid well. Recently, I saw a notification of interns being offered rupees 3,000 a month in Himachal to work in COVID wards. It's so discouraging for people who want to take up this profession. Then the role of the citizens, as Dr. Rajkumar said, is of paramount importance. People in our country have a split personality. They don't support the government and its endeavors. They just want to criticize. They don't vote. They just blame. They don't want to take the vaccine. They cut corners when it comes to paying the taxes. The government has been pleading to people to stay indoors, but they don't listen. Government hospitals, I don't think people depend on the government hospitals, and their quality certainly needs to improve. Then why doesn't the government think of public private partnership? And government must support that. In urban areas, large hospitals could be set up on a public private partnership basis. For instance, recently in Punjab, government announced in Mohali a public private partnership tender on a revenue sharing basis, which the Max Hospital chain won, and they created a super speciality center. So countries like UK and Australia too have their own approach towards PPPs. The World Bank also correctly notes that India has adopted more comprehensive service delivery PPPs, and I think this is one idea. And as Dr. Rajkumar Singh said, we should come up with apps which also tell us about the availability of beds. The way we now there is an app for vaccinations. It is thus evident that the private sector is the bedrock of our health infrastructure, and it must be supported. A quantum increase on the state government allocations. I agree with Dr. Rajkumar Singh that this certainly will help. States must increase their allocation by 1% every year, and this will help in reaching the recommended goal of 8% in 4 years. It will be in the fitness of things if the budget of healthcare is increased, which I'm sure is not going to be easy because a lot of expenditure has happened during this wave. Any additional expenditure would impact the economy adversely. So I think that's a big question mark. Then upgradation of government hospitals, as I just said, for whom private healthcare is just too expensive and often even geographically inaccessible. It's important that people start trusting the government hospitals for good treatment and comfort. So establishment of all India institutes of medical sciences in many cities is certainly a good step forward in this direction, which is being taken by the center. I agree that we have challenges of the healthcare system, which is lack of awareness, as Sir said, lack of access, workforce shortages, which is a big, big concern. And that is why I say no brain drain. And as Sir rightly said, there are no enough beds and ventilators. This certainly can be improved. While the country deals with the COVID-19 outbreak, it will not be wrong to think about how the healthcare system can be made stronger, more resilient, and more reliable than what we presently have. And that is why I really appreciated and wanted to be a part of this panel discussion. Now that we have faced a pandemic, it will be in the interest of public at large if these points are addressed for future. I would rest my point by saying that during the pandemic, nothing can ever be enough. And we have seen that. I also take pride in the fact that in India we have Ayurveda, we have naturopathy, we have homeopathy, and must work on increasing our immunity. The pandemic has clearly taught us the value of natural oxygen, which is free. We have seen how heavy the price for oxygen in hospitals can be. So we must also work on growing more trees for natural oxygen and resolve to protect the environment. And this can be initiated at school level from, with the tiny tots itself. So India was able to have the first wave that came in 2020, and life was seen coming back to normal. Malls, offices, shops, everything started opening. But like me or not, this deadly second wave in India, then a pandemic. India is a victim of a bio-war. Think about it. My heart bleeds for those who have lost their near and dear ones, and I pray to the Almighty for happy and safe times to come again. With this, I thank you all to speak my mind and heart out. To all of you, over to you, Deepa.
Much, ma'am. It was, I would not say it was a pleasure. It was, you showed us the mirror. In fact, as I very much said, that we cannot deny these facts. The flaws of our public infrastructure, our health system, our brain drain now should be stopped. Of course, as you mentioned, showing us that India is victim by war. Today, I will not to any one of us that it was a pleasure to hear your view, in fact, because these views are the bitter truths of our country, of our system. So, as Professor Dr. Rajkumar Singh said, Atmanirbhar Bharat, first we should be in this field. So that is probably the need of the hour. And pandemic has taught us many lessons which should be incorporated as part of our lifestyle.
Thank you, Deep.
So coming to our next speaker, he is of the view that we have made our corporate and now
The man, the only one you love it. Sabi, hey, see,
may
today give me bojo.
may I request all the may I request all the attendees to mute themselves other than the speaker, please. Thank you so much. Else we'll have to mute everyone. So, and I was saying that our next speaker is of the view that we have made our corporate and bureaucratic systems secure with salaries, daily allowances, pensions, etc., but left our villager to fend for himself and his family. So, our next speaker is a soldier turned educator. He's a keynote speaker and author. May I welcome Brigadier Sushil Bhasin to share
Thank
his
you.
views.
Yeah, thank you, Deepa. Thank you, Mr. Rajarao, for inviting me here. I'm very happy to be here today to be taking part. Now, I'm going to deviate a little. I do understand that there is a crisis, and this crisis is, as already brought out, once in a lifetime type of a thing that we have seen. And even the pandemic 100 years ago was a very different variety. And this pandemic is a unique one. Now, having said that, I think India as a country did very well in the first part. And till about December, I found a report written by a US doctor and a scientist who said that India had handled this much better than many other developed countries, and one felt very proud. But the second wave has hit us very badly. No doubt that the government has been found lacking in certain actions which are delayed or not taken. As Alka ma'am brought out, I think it's a very, very important fact, and I personally say that political blaming each other and all was taking precedence, is still taking precedence. But every individual Indian has also contributed to the crisis because of our lack of responsibility and ownership, which certainly needs to be looked into. So if I was to say that what you do for future, the first thing is let's wake up the ownership quotient of everyone. Whenever a crisis comes, it brings with it a surprise element. Always a crisis comes suddenly, it was not planned. And so was pandemic. Nobody planned it, nobody anticipated it, nobody predicted it. And whenever there is a crisis, small or big, it breaks a pattern. There's a pattern which is going on, that pattern gets broken and things are imbalanced. And when all this happens, it also raises a level of hopelessness. So what I have decided to do is, instead of talking about the medical infrastructure that everyone is talking about, I will go on to say that yes, when you say Atmanirbhar, let's go to the Atma. Let's see what can I do? Whatever the crisis, the whole world has had the same crisis, but everyone has responded differently. How do you respond to a crisis is very, very important. In the same family, if there are 4 people suffering from COVID, there is one who's smiling it away, there's one who's crying all the time, and many people have landed up in the hospitals and died not because of COVID, but because of heart attack, because of panic, because of the fear of what's going to go wrong. So here today, I'm going to be talking about what can you do to survive in any crisis. Whatever be the crisis, can you survive and even thrive? So I have a 7-point formula which I'm going to be talking about. Okay, and so I'm going to tell you 7 things of what you can do. And I'm very happy there's so many students here today, and particularly they will find this very, very enlightening. So the first thing is embrace reality. Jo hai, so hai. That is what Gita says. Now don't live a life that you think you should be living. Live a life that is. जो आज reality hai. Let's live by that reality. Right? If Corona has come, we have not done anything about it. I can't do anything about it. Let me embrace the reality and work on that, not complain and crib about we wish, but we can do nothing about it. The point is focus on what you have and not what you should have had. I've got a very nice story here that in 1970, when the NASA launched its aborted moon mission, Apollo 13, there was a very good example that the NASA mission control had a huge problem on their hands. Oxygen explosion had taken place, and there was hell to play, and getting messages after messages from the spacecraft that this is not functioning, that is not functioning, and all that, and there was crisis. So the NASA mission control, Jenny Kranz, what he said, he just sent a message to them that don't tell me what is not functioning, just tell me what is okay. And he only focused on what was functioning and ignored what was not functioning. Can we all look at our lives like that? Focus on what you have, don't focus on what you don't have. And that will use the crisis like nothing else. Focus on what you can control on. What is, if you can't control something, ignore it. Just wish it away. Because if there's traffic jam, I can't do anything about it. So might live in that traffic jam and learn how to live within that traffic jam and still succeed. I think today's children have to learn this, that we are in an environment where a lot of things we can't control. So we must learn to live in this environment the way it is and not the way in which it should be. The fourth one is start with here and now. What is it that is here and what is available now? Don't look at what used to happen. Don't look at what will happen in the future. What I can do today is to look at anything that is happening right now. And that will take you miles away. My next point is on a very, very good formula for life. E plus R is equal to O. E is event, R is response, and O is outcome. This is a formula which makes your life happy. Event plus response is equal to outcome. I normally explain this with the help of the incident that happened in 2008 when the terrorists from Pakistan attacked Mumbai. And all that was happening was, or rather, and what was happening, everyone was talking about what's going wrong. Okay. So I remember that there was a person with a mic, a news reporter, and he went into somebody's car and he said, what is happening? He said, Bombay is a horrible place to live. Sorry, it was not about it was about the floods of 2005. I'm sorry, I made that mistake. When there were floods in 2005, so this chap says, it's horrible. Bombay is not a place to live in. The BMC is bad. The government is bad. It's bad. And the news reporter got a little fed up. He went out, went to another person. He says, sir, what do you say about the situation? What's the situation? It's so bad. He went to, and he says, sir, how do you find this environment? He says, beautiful. It has rained a little more than it normally does. And the cameraman, that reporter, he focuses camera on the co-driver's seat where there is a thermos flask and there is a casserole. And he says, so what is this? So he says, yesterday, the whole day while getting back to home, I could not even get a cup of tea, and I'm very fond of my tea. So this morning I had to go out, and my wife said, don't go out. In the TV it's saying, don't go, step out of the house. But he said, no, I've got very important work and I need to go. So he says, my wife has given me some tea, I've got some sandwiches, I've got some magazines. So when the car stops, I'm reading my magazine, I'm listening to music, I'm enjoying life. And when it's okay, I move ahead. I can't do anything. I know that what normally takes me 1 hour, I may take 6 hours to reach my office today. It's okay. The point is, event was same for everyone, but the outcome was different. And what is different is the response. So can we learn how to respond? That is within us. That is 100% in our control. So if we can learn how to respond, everything will be great. The sixth point I'm talking about is taking timely decisions. As I said, all these surprises that demand quick decision. So when Corona came, you all saw that there was a flattening of the curve that we used to be talking about. And that was that the infrastructure, whether it was the hospitals, the ICUs, the ambulances, the nursing staff, all that had to be done faster than the rate of the growth of the virus. And we did pretty well in that. We did manage to bring up our infrastructure and control that beautifully till December. But now it's easy to blame everyone, but the numbers have, something that nobody had imagined. And even if we had catered for a lot of more oxygen and all, these numbers could have, taken anyone by surprise. So take timely decisions in your life, don't and act. Some people keep thinking, they don't act. So if you don't act on time, you miss out opportunities and they never come back again. My last point is to sum up all this and say that when you are in crisis and you've got a clear understanding of it, you know what is within your control, you know what is that you can do, you can plan your future, you can take timely decisions, and when you've made a plan of how you're going to do your bit in solving that crisis for yourself, then is something called self-discipline. Because all things done, if you are not disciplined, then nothing will happen. And what is self-discipline? And that's something I love to talk to students about. A lot of students here today, please write down on a piece of paper what I'm going to tell you. Self-discipline is doing what you ought to do, and we all know what we have to do. Our parents, our community, our religion, our law of the land has told us what to do. We know it. Doing what you ought to know, even when you don't feel like doing it and when there's nobody watching you. Doing what you ought to do, even when nobody is watching you and when you don't feel like doing it. So with that, I will say that notwithstanding whatever the crisis is, notwithstanding whatever the lack of infrastructure is, can we all individually take the responsibility, look at becoming self-reliant. आत्मनिर्भर बनना है तो स्वयं पे कुछ काम कीजिए. Let's work on our individual self. Let us become responsible citizens who end with a small story. No, it's already 6:52. No, I think I'll forget that story because I've taken my time. Thank you very much.
So much, Brigadier. It was wonderful to hear these 7 golden rules from you, and embrace the reality, focus on what you have and should have had, focus on what you can control and still succeed. Start with here and now, live it day by day. Even E plus R equal to O. And your timely decisions, don't miss out that opportunity. Opportunity doesn't come back. And 7, last of all, sum up all of this. Discipline, self-discipline. And what you said, self-discipline is doing what we ought to do, in fact, in the corporate world, because many of you do not know, I belong to the corporate world. I work for a German automotive firm. So what he has said about self-discipline in our corporate world, we call it integrity. Is it not, sir?
Yeah, exactly. But
We
integrity, this is beyond that. See, anyway, we won't debate that. But it is beyond, because this is implementing that integrity. Integrity is a part of self discipline. Self discipline is more than just integrity.
Very well said. Thank you so much. It was indeed wonderful to listen for you. And I'm hearing you and sharing the screen with you for the first time. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you
Welcome.
so
So at least I made you say it's a pleasure.
much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I welcome to our next speaker. She is a counseling psychologist. She is Dr. G.C. Kavita. Ma'am, I welcome you for our today's session, Importance of the Public Health Infrastructure. Over to you, please.
Very good evening, and thank you, Ms. Deepa and Dr. Raja Rao and World Peace Commission for this wonderful opportunity. It's real pleasure listening to Professor Dr. Rajkumar and Madam Alka Kapoor and Brigadier Sushil Basin G for the most insightful and the informative talk. I think I just pulled out a Mool mantra from the whole conversation. I think let us pull up the ownership quotient of everyone rather than doing a blame game and finally landing nowhere. And thank you so much, Brigadier Sushil G, for this wonderful thought. I think I'm pretty excited. Just not a counseling psychologist. I'm also the India COVID Action Network Mental Wellbeing National Coordinator. So I mean, being in this for the past 1.5 years now, I see what kind of mindsets have been changing with the pandemic and how people are responding, and then how things are really happening. Probably before I just start talking about like what do we really need, what kind of infrastructure do we really need to really pull in this pandemic, I think my first thought goes to the three stories. I think later I'll try to pull in an insight from these three stories and then probably move ahead. One story I know, probably let me start with a very positive story, bringing in some removing little graveness from the whole conversation. I happen to be one of the caretakers for a COVID patient here at Hyderabad. This gentleman who was in his 70s. I mean, I know the way he has. I know the mindset like this gentleman has, and in dealing the situations and handling the situations and responding to the situations. When he was tested COVID positive, then I just said like, "How are you feeling now? Like, are you really panicking?" He said, "No, nothing. Don't worry. We have people to take care." And there is so much that I need to do from my side rather than depending on the medical faculty for this. So he was put in the hospital for 3 days, and then he was put in ICU on day one because of a CT scan. Day two, he was shifted to the room, and then I just went to have a talk with the doctor to understand like how did he find the patient, like how was the patient improving. The first thing that the doctor told me, Dr. Kavita, I'm so glad you got him here. I said, what made you say so, doctor? I mean, I don't find it very positive to hear this from you. He said that for the past 1 year, we are so anxious and stressed out with patients and all that negative emotions that keep cropping in, that this gentleman whom you have got, a 74-year-old man, cracks up jokes. He talks to the attending faculty, and he pulled in a spirit with them that we feel that we need people around because it's been long time that since we are back to the normal human form. I said, oh, wow. He said, I really don't wish him that he's here, but at least at times you kindly bring him here such that, we keep talking to him and then he boosts us up, to really do that. Then I said, oh, wow, this is so good. This is so good. This is so wonderful to know. I give you the case two. Case two, we have lost the person. The person already had a pre-existing OCD problem with cleanliness. Like all the time, because I know the person for the past 25 years now. whenever I go home, whenever I go to their home, I always see her either with a dusting cloth or either with a mopping cloth, cleaning the home all around. I still remember the day I used to joke with her, "Auntie, this is what is going to really trouble you at some point of time in your life." Unfortunately, she was tested positive and put up in a hospital. And eventually, all of us know very well, like the kind of, how difficult it is to get a bed and all those things in the hospitals at this point of time. So she could get into a very government hospital, a very normal hospital, with a very, I wouldn't call it a clean kind of rooms setup. So, and she didn't eat anything because the room was not clean. She didn't go to the bathroom because there was no intake at all, and she passed away because of this. This is case 2. Case 3. I know a lady like who's lot anxious for every small thing in her life. It could be the smallest thing possible. There is already an anxiety problem existing in the person. The person never, though realized, never taken any efforts to get it corrected from the medical expertise, and then she passed away. The moment she got to know that she was tested positive, that itself was enough for her to actually get into a very critical condition. The reason why I narrated these 3 stories, let me tell you, because most of us, when we talk about the infrastructure, we talk about the physical infrastructure dimensions. We talk about all the infrastructures required for the diagnosis, the treatment, and when a patient is admitted, we talk about all that. But we have totally forgotten the mind dimensions or the mental infrastructure, what we need to really possess at this point of time. I thought I'm going to talk about the mental infrastructure, what a person actually needs, what a person actually has to do. And I'm totally with Brigadier Sushil ji on this, like the 7 core principles of how to lead a life. I think most of the times in a critical situation like this, which it's a global pandemic, it's a global psychological experiment of lockdown or staying isolated or staying away from people, that none of us know like how to really look into it. But with the given situations, with the given limitations, like what exactly or what best we should be doing is something that what we need to look out. So let me today talk about the mental dimensions or the mental infrastructure that is actually required to overcome this pandemic, or to conquer this pandemic, rather put it in that way. So to cite a small story once again, I love stories, so I keep narrating them often. I'll give you a very small example. You wake up in the morning, you get into your balcony, you see beautiful flowers blooming in your pots. There's a nice fragrance that comes out of those flowers. You see the birds chirping, you hear the birds chirping in the sky, and you get to see the aroma of coffee brewing in the kitchen, probably early in the morning, right? And then somebody gets you a cup of coffee and puts it on your table, and you are with your newspaper as usual, because most of the Indians do have a newspaper along with the morning coffee or tea. That's we are hardwired for that. So you want to do that, and suddenly your child or something happens, and this cup of coffee, what you are expecting, it just slips off, and then it falls down on the floor. It gets splattered. Tell me something. What is your focus on? Is the focus on all the beautiful things that what you have seen, or is the focus on the sounds, beautiful sounds you have heard in the morning? Is the focus on that aroma that has actually given you the satisfaction of having the coffee? Do you all agree with me or not? The moment you start getting the aroma of coffee from the kitchen or from whichever space, 50% of your thought of having the coffee is satiated at that point of time. So you forget that, you forget the senses, you forget all the beautiful things that what you have experienced through your senses, and what you actually focus on is that spilled coffee on the floor, and your mood is off for quite some time. And this is the mindset of every human being, for that matter, especially in a crisis like this. There is an anxiety, there is a stress, there is a death anxiety that is there in the people, because most of the people, we feel that anybody who goes to hospital will die. But is this what is happening? recovery rate is quite huge. Why are we forgetting that at this point of time? And why is it the majority are able to recover, and why is it few are dying? Is it because of lack of oxygen? Is it because of lack of treatment, or is it because of the person not responding? Who is responsible for a patient's response? Is it the doctors, or is it the patient himself? If we have to think it, yes, I would say that definitely there is a percentage of responsibility on both of them. But don't you think that taking an equal ownership quotient of what exactly we are in, can't we really come out of it if we think positive that this too shall pass? This too shall pass, and I'm going to come out of it very successfully. Don't you think that we would definitely come out of any big crisis in this world? And haven't we come out of big crises earlier in the world? You forget about the pandemic. Pandemic is a cumulative thing. How about our own lives? How many times have we successfully come out of the biggest crisis? How many times have we come out of the times when there was a huge financial crisis? How many times have we come out of when there was a huge emotional crisis? How many times have we come out of when we had a physical ailment? How many times have we come out of it? If we just sit and think, we would understand the mental dimension. What we had at that point of time was so negligent because we have seen the world as a better space. With the pandemic having hit the country, the mental dimension of us has become a cumulative attribute to the mental dimension of the country. Do you all agree with me or not on this? So most of us, we become more sick, not because we are sick. We have become more sick because we have seen the world becoming sick. Don't you think it's time that we start changing the mental dimension of what we are? Don't you think it's time we start relooking at things, start relooking at the positive aspects of life? And yeah, there are issues. I don't deny that. I absolutely don't deny that. I totally agree with Professor Dr. Rajkumarji on the various aspects. And let us talk about the mental health dimension here to add up something here. And how many, I tell you, there has been few stats that has come up. WHO has actually defined the health as just not the absence of a disease, but a state of well-being. How many of us are really in a state of well-being? How many of us are really knowing that this 24-hour span of my 24 minus 8 hours of my wake-up time, how many times have I been happy, or how many times have I been looking at beautiful things in my life that has happened to me right now? How many times have we used all our senses to understand our life? How many times have we seen the good things happening to us in our life? Yes, the global pandemic definitely has reflected few gaps in the country's mental health system or the physical infrastructure or whatever it is. But don't you think a human mind is much more stronger? Human mind is much more stronger than the crisis. Don't you think that a human thought process is much more stronger than the crisis? And let us think back from the evolution, like how we have, what we are today from what we have been earlier. Let us start with our forefathers, the early man. What did he have? What did he have, and how did he come out of this? And he is the one who has given us the inspiration to come to what we are today. And how did that happen? Is it not the mental dimension that is responsible for that? This is time. We don't deny there are problems. We don't deny there are issues. We don't deny there would be infections. But what we have to deny is what is our mental infrastructure to really face this crisis, and what is our mental dimension to really face this crisis. This is so important. Let me tell you. Doctors, we don't blame the medical faculty here. 1.5 years with the PPE kits on for 6 hours because you cannot reuse the PPE kit. Imagine a situation, a person who's inside sweating down, treating the patients for 1.5 years. What would be the mindset of the person? He's a human being at the end of the day. Let us forget that he's a professional. Let us remind ourselves that he's also a human being. And how long can a person stay positive in the most demanding situation? So as patients, if we start looking at the whole dimension with more a positive approach and give them the confidence that, yes, as a patient, I am going to be all right. My mental dimension is going to support your treatment. Don't worry about it. Tell me, I'm definitely sure that at least there is 10 to 15% of the cases we are losing out. They would come back. They would come back to life. The pre-existing mental conditions or pre-existing problems what we have as a person, because mental mental health is a stigma. To talk about mental health is a stigma in our country, not only in our country, but many developing countries. We hate to talk about that problem. We never appreciate that because we think that he's a lunatic. वो पागल है. Somebody is going to a doctor. We think वो पागल है, इसलिए he has gone to a mental health specialist. What we fail to understand, you don't need a mental health specialist, but how much are you staying healthy? How much are you well-being? How much are you in a state of well-being in a 24-hour span? How much are you looking at? So let me give you a few tips on like how do you really be happy and how do you stay happy in this given situation? Because this is important. There are lapses. I tell you, there is no word called perfection. Let me be very honest with you. If there was a word called perfection, you all remember, we all used to watch a TV called Dynara in black and white. I think I was a kiddo then. That small little black and white TV called Dynara. If Dynara felt that that was the best TV, would have never come out with a new model. And once in 3 years, we keep changing the TVs. Does it mean that the TV that has been produced earlier was not perfect? Does it mean that? There is never an end to perfection. All we need to do is, all we need to think is, we need to grow. How much effort are we putting to grow and how much effort? It is a cumulative responsibility. It is the ownership quotient has to definitely increase. We cannot put everything on either the system or on the policies or on the government. Not possible. We need, how much are we disciplined? How much are we doing to be a part of it? How much are we doing this? I know very well, as Madam Alka was mentioning, I know most of my house help, they don't want to go and take a vaccine because they feel they will die. That is the problem. That is the reality. And they feel that. So how much of effort like we need to put to pull in this, and what is the effort from our side as a community to see that everybody is vaccinated such that the third wave or whatever it is not so impactful as the second wave. Second wave is definitely impactful because the vaccinations has just started and there was nothing much in our control. But when now things are in the control, when okay, there are issues, there are lapses, there are shortage of vaccines, yes, but we'll all overcome that. But don't you think as a responsible person, we need to take, let me tell you, I know a hospital, let me not name the hospital, 10% of the doctors have not taken the vaccine. 28 years, 30 years, 32 years, I'm talking of 32 years. Now they are fighting for that. Now the rule is unless until you go into covid.gov.in, you get registered, you can't get a vaccination, no matter you are a doctor or not. You've been given an opportunity. Why didn't you take then? So where is the responsibility quotient there? Where is the ownership quotient there? I think all of us should understand each one of us is responsible for the situation today. It's just not one thing. Because 130 crore population, it's not easy. And after all, we cannot control a family of 4. One wants one, second one wants one, other one wants one. When it is so difficult to control a family of 4 or 3, is it easy to control a population of 130 crores? Definitely not. But there has to be a self-discipline. There has to be a way of life. And the mental dimension has to definitely stay. Unless until the mental infrastructure is changed, unless until there is a positivity, there is a hope. And you are the person who's going to give confidence to the doctor. Don't expect confidence from the doctor. Please don't. It is your body. Your body responds. Because being a spiritual person, I believe that the energy systems of your body responds much more. There have been many cases when doctors, the medical system said that this person is not going to live, but the person sprang to life with pink of health. There are cases like that. Let us change. Let us come out of all the anxieties. Let us come out of the stress. Let us not think, because let us not put our mind dimension into the cumulative mind dimension and create a bigger chaos in this situation now. It is time each one of us stand strong. Each one of us stay positive. Each one of us in a 24 hours dimension span, think of how many times can we be positive in a day and make a journal of it. Let us keep noting the journal. Let us make a note of all the beautiful things we see in life. Let us have the gratitude. Now I'm talking to you, I'm breathing, there is oxygen coming in. Is it not one big reason for me to be grateful for? Is it not one big reason to be grateful for what I am today? What more reasons do we need? As long as when a person breathes, as long as the oxygen goes in, you always have an opportunity to earn. You always have an opportunity to become better. You always have an opportunity to establish relationships. You have an opportunity for everything in this life. But first you need to breathe. Don't you think this one aspect of being grateful or having gratitude for what we are today, is it not enough to live happy? I think with this, let me just end my talk. And thank you so much. And this is such a wonderful time. And it is time that people should start focusing on giving positivity to people and making motivate them, inspire them to become better people. And I think it is definitely a cumulative responsibility of each and everyone, irrespective of our profession, our qualifications, and whatever we are. So thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to be here. And it's lovely to be a part of this platform. Thank you so much. Thanks once again, and namaskar.
Deepa ma'am, unmute.
Am I? Sorry, I use some earphones, which I guess have stopped working. So I was saying, wow, you were, everything said was like you just became the devil's advocate, and you were like, no, everything is at its own place, and you just need to take care of yourself and mental health, and it's all there in the mind and everything. And we were like astounded, and we were like, I just couldn't blink, and the energy that you had to validate your point was like astonishing. And the way you had all your views, and I was like, duck, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was like, where is our theme today? Where is the importance of the public health? Importance of the public health infrastructure. So it's all about your well-being, and your mental state is all that matters. I think we need to have more sessions from you, and some interesting good topics, and which will surely be referring to Mr. Raja Rao. So we should actually have more sessions from on some other different topic. And Ma'am Alka Kapoor. So now that she already mentioned that, I guess the psychology is also a subject nowadays in schools, and right. I studied in Cambridge School, Srinivasapuri, Delhi, and we had one of the optional subjects of psychology there. Yeah. And I think it has to be inculcated right from the school level, right from, what are your views on that? Now that she's so much stressed on that.
Yes, of course. It's all about your positive thinking. We say it all the time. Your life turns out to be how you want to see it, how you want to look at it. Send positive vibrations to the universe, and positivity is going to come back to you. So we all keep talking about positivity because there are people who would like to see a half glass full, and there will be people who will see a half glass empty. So it's just your perception, you know. There are people who look at the grass being greener on the other side, but then there are people who like to mow their own grass and make it green. So it's all about your outlook towards life. And as Brigadier said, it's about E plus RO is equal to O. So it's always about that. And we say it all the time. I have done... made a world record on mental health and well-being, and it's UK world record, which was attended by 6,000 students. And of course, I keep doing it all the time because I personally, before the beginning of the session, I told Mr. Raja Rao, I'm sorry, I will not criticize. I think you must have heard it. I said, you like it or you don't, but I don't criticize. So whatever it is, we have to make the best while the sun shines. So, you know, that's my outlook towards life. And I believe that's the outlook of my team as well. And it was really nice being in your session. I love the energies of all the speakers, and certainly a great learning experience for each one of us, and great points to take back home and reflect, and to ponder and to follow for the rest of the life. Thank you so much.
Commendable, Ma'am Alka Kapoor, that you joined us, and it was an amazing experience. And when I say, this thought was coming to me, I'm sorry that we are already short of time, and we were like, we were stressing so much on our mental health and our willpower and determination, and the strength lies within us. But what about the media? What the scenario they were cultivating and showing all the time, everything, the same news.
It's all about the media. The media had a particular role, responsibility, and ethics attached to it in the past. People used to look upon the media, respect what was being said. But now I think every one of us, the first thing is, if you want to live a happy life, don't read the newspaper. If you want to lead a happy life, please don't watch the news, because they, for their own TRPs, are projecting everything that is bad, that is worse. And of course, again, it's paid media. At one point of time, you see everything against one minister. I think it's all rubbish that's the media is showing, demoralizing people, and more nonsense is being created by the media than it actually is. So that's what I feel.
That's what Dr. Rajkumar.
Journalism should be very, very honest, very, very unbiased, I should say. And media has a big role to play in the honor of a country in at the international scenario. See, our own media is playing a very, very negative role. Otherwise, as I said, they're trying to create a Trump effect with Mr. Modi. And as Madam rightly said, you have to step into his shoes once, for a month, for a week, for a day, to see how to control a population, a big family of 130 crore people, with everyone beating its own trumpet. You know, I think it's not an easy task. We are the world's largest democracy, and I said the population of many countries put together is one India, and there is a lot of diversity, the rich and the poor. There is so much of gap, and then we are looking for equality when no one wants to shell out money, no one wants to shell out help. I think we have a long way to go.
So as I was saying that Dr. Rajkumar already mentioned that we were suffering from pandemic, less from pandemic and more from infodemic.
Yes.
Yeah, very well. Rightly said, sir. Yes. So now may I hand it over to Mr. Rajarao for his views, please. Sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Really, it's a wonderful session today. I want to thank Professor Rajkumar Singh and Alka Kapoor ma'am, because they have tried to amend the system. They have tried to, and they have spoken from the hearts of common people. So they tried to give their best. How can we correct our system? So I thank Professor Dr. Rajkumar Singh sir and Alka Kapoor ma'am taking the torch of the common man, because in the beginning of the session, you have spoken very well by carrying the torch of the common people and their suffering, by giving constructive criticism and constructive inputs. How can we better our society? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And giving a lot of inputs regarding the public health infrastructure. You have put some valid statistics for that. Thank you so much. Then in the second session, we have two other visionary guests, Brigadier sir and Kavita ma'am. These two are excellent in different perception, because when they are listening to them, for me it seems to be it is the Mann Ki Baat program of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because they have spoken from their heart. They have spoken from their heart. And they have asked us to work with our mind, because I thank Alka Kapoor ma'am and Professor Dr. Rajkumar Singh sir. They have spoken about the physical infrastructure at this moment we required for the nation. At the same time, Dr. Kavita ma'am and Brigadier sir have spoken about the mental infrastructure and mental ability that is be required to face the present consequences. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. These are your views, and they are excellent and fabulous. And I want to add my points here. So I object one thing here, that is Prime Minister cannot handle 130 crore population. It is a wrong notion, because we may have 130 crore population, but we have the system that can handle the 130 crore population, because we have 30 plus chief ministers. We have chief ministers, we have governors, we have so many ministers, so many number of MPs. If we are able to utilize our human resources properly, because let me add a point here, mental infrastructure, that should be good, but see the priorities of government. It's not, don't take, if you belong to a particular party, we are not talking about political parties, but we are talking about the priorities. Central Vista, people dead in the river, people dead bodies in river. So politicians' priority goes to Central Vista. You believe it or not, that work is in progress, but we have served all the nations in the world with our vaccines, and we announced it as a great victory, and we proclaimed ourselves as a Vishwaguru to the whole world, not whole nation, whole world. But now we are saying that we are 130 crore population. See, we ourselves stood in the international platform and we announced that we helped and we protected the world from the pandemic. That's what we said. But at this juncture, all politicians are saying that we are 130 crore population, we are 130 crore population. It's not correct, because we may 130 crore population, but we have the system that can help all these 130 crore population, because we have got so many chief ministers, so many governors and MPs to accommodate whatever that are required for these population. But the thing is, we cannot put a plan. We are unable to put a plan. So if the plan comes, and one day comes, that plan comes, maybe it takes 1 or 2 days later, but our government will certainly take a decision to put up a plan to circulate vaccines to these 130 crore population. But if it happens a bit advanced, we can save millions of people. So this is my view, not anyone view. I don't want to criticize anyone, but here I want to say, I speak on behalf of the people, those who are oppressed. Because the pathetic situation in India is, we cannot even bury the dead bodies. So that's a very pathetic. If you see the river, if you see that river, Ganges, that's very pathetic. If you see the burial grounds, that's very pathetic. So it's good. It's,
Please mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. So when these things are happening, so we have to support people and we have to support governments. If something is wrong on behalf of people, or if something is wrong on the side of government, we have to criticize in a way that is constructive, because constructive criticism can give good results to people. So that's my idea. And I once again thank you, everyone, those who ever participated. Really, it's a splendid participation. I thank you once again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mr. Raja Rao, just want to bring it to notice of that the vaccination plan is already out by the center, and it's a well-planned strategy, and I think everyone will get the benefit of the vaccination.
Yes, sure. That's what
And
we are all
certainly
expecting.
130 crores is not a big population if there is not a disconnect between the states and the center. So we need to join
Yes, ma'am,
hands.
it is politicized. The pandemic is politicized.
Yes.
That's the problem. So
Yes.
soon everything will be fine. It
Yeah.
takes time, but during this period, a lot of lives are going. That's the problem. That's why we are
Yes.
feeling very sad.
Certainly,
Thank you.
certainly. Thank you. Bye-bye.